Live.
How are you? Is that thing between you two and waiting a week going to be
Yeah,
just
yeah, it's fine.
Hopefully there won't be any snowfalls, major
think
snowfall
so, yeah.
before the new year, but
Fingers crossed. No problem.
Joe, you've been all over the place today, huh? Did everything go okay with the Underwood inventory?
Yeah.
What do you think he's going to recommend?
What's that?
What do you think he's going to recommend? Just what we,
I think he's gonna make the recommendation.
just like we thought this morning?
Yeah.
Was he surprised at the extent of the damage down there?
That was hard to tell, whether he
Yeah.
was surprised or not. I mean, you know, with everything, all the water receded, it's hard to see exactly
Yeah.
how bad it was.
It's
We had
time.
pictures,
Yes.
plenty of pictures for him.
Call the meeting to order.
You bet.
Call the meeting to order for the Public Safety Committee of January 25th, 2018. Roll call, please.
Counselor Dowdle?
Here.
Counselor Ensel?
Here.
Counselor Armstrong?
No, I'm not on this committee.
But you're here.
I'm here.
Yep. Mayor Reed?
Present.
Police chief?
Here.
Fire chief?
Here.
Building inspector McMahon?
Here.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussion of litigation of the firefighters union.
Do we want to wait for Councilor Casper? Is she coming?
She
We
may
don't-
not be
Yeah,
attending.
I haven't heard, but,
If
Okay,
if possible,
we
I'd
can
suggest
wait.
we hold off and wait
Okay,
15,
all right.
20 minutes. If not, then we'll do it, but let's get to the, okay.
okay. Minutes of the previous meeting. Resolved that the minutes of the Public Safety Committee held on,
There aren't any.
there aren't any, that's true, are approved and placed in a file among the public records of the city clerk's office. By Counselor. Second by Counselor. Any public comments? At this time, members of the audience are invited to come forward to comment on any agenda items on tonight's agenda. Anyone? There being no one, we'll go on to number 3, reports from department representatives and discussion with counselors. These will address budget concerns and recent impacts of all the activity that has happened within the new year. We'll ask Chief Parkins to go first, if you'd like to comment on any budget concerns that you may have, whatever direction this takes us, whether it's overtime, equipment.
Basically, the only budget concerns we have at this time are, obviously, we did incur some costs from the Underwood Avenue flooding. It was just under $5,000 in overtime that we spent in regards to that.
Any other overtime concerns in the ordinary course of business when you take away that item?
Obviously, the amount of work we're doing on the drugs
Right.
is always a concern. So obviously, we do whatever we can to keep that in check, but it's always a constant concern that you know, if we're going to be fighting this epidemic, that it is going to come at a cost.
Now, some of these busts are sudden, I would suspect.
Some are more lengthy investigation.
Right, but if you get an indication that something's happening at 3 o'clock in the morning, what do you do at a time? Do you call in people for that? Or?
Generally, yes.
And that's an overtime consideration?
Yes.
At that point?
I
And
mean,
is
we're
that-
able to handle it from the shift, but there's usually specialized officers who work in the narcotics enforcement unit that sometimes need to be called in depending on the circumstances.
Are there ever instances where you can't respond to the potential time that something's happening because of that overtime constraint?
No, we have to, we can't let the public safety concern, you know, just because we can't let the cost be the driving force there. Public safety has to be the overriding factor.
That's good to hear. All right. And I'll also ask on the purchase order, there's that's in front of me tonight on a digital surveillance solution. Not a big cost, but I'm just wondering where this cost goes to. Video support, remote, active maintenance, things like that, tech support. When we talk surveillance, what are we talking? Is this a video? Is this the
Yes.
parking lot of the police department? Where is
It's
this?
all the cameras
Throughout the city?
inside and outside the police department.
So it's right at that location?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And is that being well used? I think there was opportunities for people who are maybe making sales of items online. They were invited to the police
Yes, we
department
do
to do
have
so.
parking spots reserved for people wishing to, conduct business if they met people online and they can meet there at a safe place.
Right, okay.
And it is utilized.
Okay, good to hear. Number of police officers presently?
45.
45. And how many of the 45 are considered trainees? If that's the right
We
word?
have 3 recruits right now. They will be graduating the academy tomorrow, and we will begin their field training.
So of the 45, the 3 are included in that number?
Yes.
So, and they'll be on training for a year, 6 months?
Well, they'll be on probation, but the training, depending on how quickly they progress, it's usually 4 months that they're in supervised training, riding with another officer.
And just one last question in terms of budget, taking away the overtime personnel costs, any equipment thoughts, anything breaking down, anything new and
Fingers
exciting
crossed.
that you'd like to buy, anything like that, or what do we?
We're hoping to be able to purchase at least 1 police car this year. So.
Okay.
I just had a follow-up question, Chief, to go along the lines of Counselor Doddle as far as staffing. Of your force, how many officers are, I guess, what I would kind of consider to be patrol officers that are doing patrol cars and responding, that aren't, say, lieutenants and so on, that are actually out on the streets, exclusive of detectives?
On a
also.
given shift,
Right.
who's out there?
We have 28 patrol people right now amongst the four shifts.
Okay. Thank you.
And the equipment used, say at Underwood, on the one tour I took, I noticed what is the big piece of?
Which one are you referring to? Our command post unit or?
Well, there was the
rescue
unit
vehicle?
and then the rescue vehicle.
The rescue vehicle is our armored vehicle.
Okay. So how was that utilized?
How was it utilized for the floods?
Yeah.
Well, because it can traverse water of significant depths, ice, snow. So it was used to get to the locations to get people out of their trailers.
Okay. So it came in handy.
Yes.
Yes, all right, good to have. Okay. Do you have any questions of us?
No.
Chief Lawless?
We didn't incur, we were at $1,800 for overtime at Underwood. Our more significant would have been 72 brink, that Brinkerhoff, that was labor intensive and obviously took quite a while. So that was our big cost this month.
Do you have an estimate on that, Chief?
Not yet. We're switching over to InTime, which is an automated payroll system, and we haven't kicked it in yet. And once we do that, I'll get you a report on it.
And at a time like that, when mutual aid is called in, do we have a financial responsibility to those departments that come in?
Yes, if any of their equipment breaks, it falls under us,
If it breaks?
if it breaks.
Otherwise,
Otherwise,
it's just mutual aid
mutual aid.
responding?
Right. It's give and take. We go to fires outside the city too, at times when they call for resources and they need extra help.
Right. Okay, and members of your department at this point?
35.
Any equipment issues?
No, we're still working to keep the fire truck going, the engine that was slated for replacement. We've had some minor repair costs so far this month, but other than that, everything seems to be holding up well.
Okay. Anything last year, towards the end of the year, costs on that?
Of the fire truck?
As we wrapped up the year?
No,
Okay.
not that I can remember.
Do you have any questions?
How is the scheduling done, chief? Is that, or do you do the scheduling, or is that automated, or how, as far as the different?
We are switching over, it's gonna be an automated system, and we've utilized what the police department's been utilizing for several years now. And it also works with a payroll also, so everything is together, scheduling and payroll. So we're switching over to that now.
Last one. The technology on the screen on the wall in your office, that's new, relatively new. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that is assisting, what is that adding to the fire department?
So that system tells me who's on duty. It's an I am responding. It's done countywide. We don't pay for that, the county pays for it. We utilize it. We put in there hydrants, hydrant location, hydrant gallons per minute flows. We work on pre-plans. You'll see us go around and take, which would be high hazard, what we consider a high hazard building, and go through and run a complete pre-plan on it. That data is then uploaded and is accessible on scene. So I can have a 4-page document that tells me where the utilities are, any special hazards that we have. We even go down to breaking the fire flows, which you would need, and what percentage is involved.
All right, so that's delivered to the scene.
That is at the scene.
Talk to you a second.
Sure. Thank you. Mr. McMahon.
Counselor?
Oh. Budget concerns.
I don't.
Of your
have
budget.
any-
What
no
are the
significant
concerns?
budget concerns at this point.
Because you don't have really a significant budget, is that correct? Or, I mean, it's not insignificant, but it's not major. Okay.
I mean, 4 weeks into the year, we're
Okay.
okay.
And how did, we'll use Underwood because that's the best one to use. How did all the coordination go? Who kind of took the lead of that? I mean, it was a rescue, but then eventually it became a inspection issue.
Yeah,
Did it bounce between?
The chiefs were the point on this, and then as the water receded and there was a chance to get families back in, then it shifted to my office to inspect the mobile homes that could potentially get people back in.
Okay. And that's a single water line into the park, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So if the water's turned on, it's turned on to everyone?
Yes,
And if it's turned off, it's turned off to everyone?
that's right.
So if you have, well, maybe this is a DPW question, but if some of the residences are considered, they can't be occupied, and the water is turned on, I'm just wondering what happens within those units. Does water just?
I think the water can be isolated from the main to each mobile home.
Okay,
And I think they're in the process of doing that.
okay.
They may have done that already, turned the water on.
And I'll ask, everything's considered a learning lesson. What'd you learn from this?
We learned a few things.
I mean, besides water can be the enemy,
Well,
Doesn't flow uphill.
maintain your berms and things like that.
Yeah.
But at a point, everything goes smooth and,
I'm a lot more familiar with the park itself now than I was before. The ins and outs, the storm drains, the drain through the berm, the natural flow of the water. The difficulty with that park is the whole park didn't get flooded the same way. The elevations differ from one end to the other, and then some mobile homes right next to each other were different too, in that some were 2 feet higher than the one next to it. So some were able to get back in sooner when the one right next door was not.
okay. Have you had any people come to you since then with questions? Because you're pretty much off scene now, is that correct?
No, we're there daily.
Still there? Okay.
They're working on electricity right now, probably, to try and get power back to some more units. And as that happens, each unit is going to be assessed individually to see who can get back in. We're getting to the area where these ones sustain the most damage, and there's not going to be a lot coming online right away, you know, maybe another half dozen.
And where does overtime come into play for your office? Because you're on a 37.5-hour week.
35.
35, yes. That's right, 35.
You know, we didn't sustain a lot of overtime damage here. We did a lot of the work during the day where we deferred a lot of their scheduled stuff till the next day or the next day or the next week. The after-hours stuff I handled mostly, so we got a few hours in overtime, but it's not too damaging.
And how did this impact your course of everyday duties? I mean, I know that's part of your job, but you have things every day. So there's going to have to be a catch-up, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, I mean, scheduled inspections still had to be done. The complaints that we had to be prioritized. Some were pushed off a couple days. Just do the best we can, priority-wise.
Thank you. Do you have any questions at all?
No. Did you want to talk about my travel request?
Yeah, that's next item.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you and a couple others. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Number 4, agenda items brought forward for departments to be approved by committee and recommendation to council.
At least about the decision.
Shall I read these?
We could jump into executive now.
We can do that, or we can, either way.
I mean, you don't have much left on here. We can
No,
probably finish this
that'll
up.
Yeah, we had that public hearing on the local law at 5 o'clock. So there's some, we could, as long as we don't start that early, we're fine, but just want to keep that out there too.
Okay. As per the agenda, are there any questions from council members on the requested travel?
This is annual, this is every year, isn't it, Joe? That the same, pretty much the
Yeah,
same?
we're required to maintain 24 hours of in-service training. So this takes care of all of it for all of us.
And I would only ask on request number 4 from Chief Lawless, 2 fire department employees to attend February 24th through March 4th. The total cost not to exceed $400. Will overtime costs be implemented there?
For the firefighter, no, I believe there's a lieutenant who may have one shift to cover.
So that's the composition, 1 lieutenant and one.
Yes, right now it's 1 lieutenant, 1 firefighter.
Okay.
Everything else is covered through Homeland Security.
Yes. Is this a new type of training, or?
No, we've sent people to it before. We
Okay.
actually work with live agent, Anthrax.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a good training.
That's a good point. The cost for covering somebody on a 24-hour shift could be well in excess of the approvals that you'd be doing. It's probably best we try to anticipate those costs so you're making as well-informed a decision as possible in the future.
Anything else? Number 5, any old business to discuss? Number 6, any new business to discuss? Is there a motion to, oh, no, we're going to go into we can,
Executive session?
Yep,
Motion to,
go into executive session for the discussion of litigation with the fire department Greenland.
Did you want to invite Chief Lawless as well?
Sure.
Did you first and second the ending or the
No,
adjournment?
we haven't
Well, keeping it
adjourned
open.
yet.
we haven't adjourned yet because we're going
You're
into
adjourned.
that.
I see.
Yeah, we'll come out of exec and then adjourn
Who's
it
doing the
then.
first and second on the executive session?
Dale and I.
Okay.
We can go now. You wanted to say that for a long time.
Yeah, Peter.
Oh, which one,
Okay.
Yeah, we are.
It's always a problem when, they send a minor request. They don't speak to a specific, they don't show you what they're asking. It was hot, I couldn't get in.
Not go out. Make you a paycheck.
I was gonna say, technically, you might just have to check. Although I just made so I've never actually seen it.
So the Department of Labor stopped that job. Yep. They were gonna anyway, you know, because they weren't gonna be able to do a survey. Right, so they got everything that they have there now is gonna have to be treated as hot.
You know the difference is if the homeowner did the work himself, you would have to.
Yeah.
But as soon as you hire an outside contractor,
Number 56. Yeah, it's crazy. You can take all that, you've got that on your pipes in your basement, and you go all off yourself, put it in the garbage and throw it away, just like, or whatever it is, if it's roofing, whatever. You do it yourself and it's owner occupied, and you can do that. But as soon as you hire a contractor,
all shingles, that stuff.
yeah, when I first saw the email on my phone, it came from the Department of Labor, I said, oh my God, you're shutting down 460 market. That's the first thing I thought. But it just started today. I knew, I was out there at 9 o'clock and they were just mobilizing. Everybody's entitled, everybody was dressed up, suited up, getting water going, the trucks were, they were gonna be removing material in the next hour. And then I was tied up and me, I guess, her. What? No. TRB is doing the work. They hired somebody with trucks, but they're the ones doing the remediation.
I knew they got certified.
In hindsight, I'm really curious if that, if he thinks that was worth it.
That's long. Certified.
Yeah, the reason he did it was because whoever the contractor was initially, before they found out the manipulate, by the time they got the variance approved by DOL, that contractor wasn't available anymore. He wasn't going to be available for several months. So he didn't want to wait, so he went and got himself certified. And then it took him more than that time anyway. So we missed each other today.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's not.
I did talk to him. There we go. He did explain to us, he was still under the opinion that, you know, and I said, you know, I think we can sue him without owning it. So, independent person.
All right, so
and I think he's on board with that as well.
So if let me look at the funding together and sort of cheat sheet, how we go forward.
And then also a question, back to how does the city have, because none of us talking, right? So the last time Carol talked to both of us, Peter, two of us, at that time, it was pretty clear that the city could pursue grants if they were keeping it in the park.
Yeah, these are how we include Plattsburgh housing.
Real improvements.
Then,
But does it have to be any some other, so in the future, you want to do this.
They want people.
yeah,
Spread it around.
Right, let us know.
yeah. I mean, to this time around, you can certainly support that. Yes. Do a request for all the issues, organizations. Doing a presentation.
And their bids are. And it's contingent on press conference.
Queue up the steps in the last, just these last 2 weeks.
They have to.
But they also have to be able to clear security.
People heard somebody might not be happy.
Yeah, no, essentially what we do is allow single people to build solar. Right, it sort of takes out the market value.
Right, okay. So it's not like you have to rent has to be.
No. So the single people at the most can be but yes,
It's great.
the issue is how authority that business to do it is because
My daughter, she's
they acquire land and build something for 8 years, and they sell it. They have that money. It's just probably the sell system. Get back to tax roll. If we could buy the home, we would have to make a requirement to buy the home at that price. Because it's not dropped. Plattsburgh housing authority would really well.
That's the thing that.
Which sells for it's back to actual, it's a secure home.
About that,
So, yeah, so there is, that is, we couldn't get around this question.
yeah, that's definitely something.
I'll throw this all
Yeah, we got that one. City took it over, we demolished
There's a room, public hearing.
That's what that's about. When was North Carolina? They were contingent upon Prescott identifying arrows and gangs. Prescott, it's in about as far north as
Oh, really?
I've been there.
We'd like to work. I'm not sure my wife understands.
No, I haven't. Not on Sun Air. I've gone on the other airlines. I used to have they were smaller.
Those are great.
No, I've never flown anywhere. Go to Albany or Burlington or where after that.
Oh, yeah, very. The bigger market is bigger by they know they're going to say that, so you just like go over, you're going to hit something else.
I've sold buses, so.
Maybe. December 26th, first meeting. They meet their stars there all winter. There's a party where guys will bring their wives and their mistresses to let them fight it out. That's what they use for.
I did that too. Surprise you, he's locking me out every that's
It's very designed to.
I will tomorrow. I thought I did last time, apparently not. Boy, I didn't take those.
That would give you a lot
I don't even like taking my dogs to the movies. Get sick. This is really one thing at a time. I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the only one.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yes. Yeah, it's very helpful. That's why we're all like this.
Down there. We don't have any of that That's
We can always see.
Yeah. 250.
Doesn't
Additional fee,
I have not spoken with FEMA about it, but I've heard from several sources. He might be. There's a crowd.
Oh, that was lifting the house.
Yeah, right. Sure. No, I'm
Dale.
Pro character.
Turn the heat on.
It is, okay.
I don't think that one goes on during.
There, I'm turning it up.
Lock them.
Oh.
Do I need to refer to it on the
Liz thinks it's cold, she still has her winter coat on.
If you want to wrap up your meeting, then we'll start in the public hearing.
Okay. Having returned from executive session, we'll do a motion to adjourn.
You have to
In our
report
executive, we
on,
discussed the.
Okay, that we discussed
litigation.
the litigation with the firefighters union. And no decisions were made. Thank you.
motion to adjourn.
And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Somebody? Second?
I motioned it.
Okay, good. Second? Yourself? Carrie?
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
We should do this first.
So I'd like to begin with a public hearing on the City of Plattsburgh holding a public hearing to hear public comment on local law P1 of 2018, a local law amending Chapter 233, Streets and Sidewalks, Article 5, removal of snow and ice on public sidewalks, Sections 233.30 through 233.37 of the City Code of the City of Plattsburgh. And there are copies out in the back if you'd like to look at one. This is an option for any public to be heard at this time on the public hearing. So please come forward.
Hello, I'm Jeff Moore from the City of Plattsburgh. I want to speak very negatively about this law. I think it's a very bad idea for a lot of reasons. First and foremost is there is no way to enforce this. Okay, I did a little walk before I came over here. There are hundreds, literally hundreds of sidewalks in front of people's property that are in violation right now. how on earth would you propose to be fair about this law? You're going to give out tickets on Oak Street and give everybody a free ride on Johnson Avenue or whatever? I do a lot of walking. It would take one person about 5 days to check the whole city. You cannot check it from a car. You have to walk to find the violators, okay? I think that it'll end up being totally unfair to all the people in the city, and I think it's a very poor public relationship with the city to do something like this. I look at the fines and I go, gee, I can't wait till they start catching the old and infirm on this. Supposedly there's a way out, but people got to do something to get there. Not everyone is able to do that, and there are very many areas in the city that don't have any sidewalks. Lucky them, okay? But the people that do are being punished severely for having sidewalks in front of their house, which they do not own, by the way. The city really needs to take a better look at this. It did not work in 1928, it did not work in 1938, it did not work in 1948, it did not work in 1958, and it will not work today because it is impossible to uniformly enforce this. I certainly do not want the police department spending time walking the city streets looking for violators of the city sidewalk ordinance. That's a very poor allocation of their resource. We do not need that. So who is going to do that? Who is going to go out there and police the city sidewalks? Realistically, that's why it has fallen apart every time in the last 100 years, because you cannot uniformly enforce it. And I would be the first one to complain if you're giving out tickets in this end of town and you're not giving tickets in that end of town, or vice versa. I would be here complaining. It's impossible to deal with fairly. I really wish the city would look seriously at something new. This has been tried so many times and has failed time after time after time. You know, I'm like Councilor Casper. When the ice melts, or the sidewalk melts, you get ice on your sidewalk, it gets cold like it is right now. I counted 200 in my little short walk that are pretty badly iced, and some of them would take a lot of work to get the ice up, a lot of work. It's not just a little bit, and not everybody has access to salt, which is expensive, or sand. So, you know, I wish the city would table this and reconsider what they're doing here. You're going to catch a lot of people that you're going to be sorry you did. When somebody's grandmother comes here and says, gee, I didn't know how to fight this or get out of this, I'm unable to do it, I couldn't find anybody that would come and clear my walk, what are you going to do? Are you going to charge them a $250 fine here? I look at these fines and I say, you know, I realize you're thinking about catching people that continually do this. I do my sidewalk, and I'm sure anyone here does their sidewalk that has to. But when you get into these big fines, you're going to be hurting people, and you cannot tell me that you're going to be able to check every property, or even half the properties, or even a quarter of the properties every time there's a storm. So you're going to be picking on certain people. And I suppose that by coming here, you're going to be picking on me because I came here and said something against it. But really, it's a bad idea. So I just want to just reiterate that. Why don't everybody sit down and come up with a new idea, not something that was done for the last 100 years and failed? Why don't we come up with something that might work? I mean, spend a little time and do that. You look at the communities all around here, ask them what they do about their sidewalks. I think you'll find out what they do. I'm not going to get into a big discussion about that, but I'm just saying, why don't we try something new instead of the same old, and expect something different to happen? It's just not going to, and it's going to make the council and the city look bad when they start catching the old and infirm. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other individuals like to come and please comment? One last time. Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Nancy Allen. I own 1 Oliver Court, and I just found out about this, so I'm not as well-versed as I'd like to be to address this group, but I have been on the sidewalk committee. I've been on the walking committee, and I'm just looking at these fees right now, and I am just blown away. I just cannot believe it. I take care of my sidewalk even though I'm not living here right now. My son lives in my house. But there are a lot of people that take care of their sidewalks the best they can. Some people travel, and they might be gone for a few days, and they think they have somebody taking care of their sidewalk, and they aren't. Not everybody that takes care of sidewalks, or says they will, are reliable. Can you get a list of people that will come in for a price and take care of sidewalks? Can the city come up with a cost to do the sidewalks for people with your equipment? And maybe some people will say, hey, you know what, that's pretty reasonable, I'll buy into that. As opposed to a fee, a fine, very punitive. This is why I can't wait to leave the city of Plattsburgh. It's not a very friendly place to live anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals like to come please address this local law? One last time. Seeing none, I'd like to adjourn the public hearing and then move to continuation of our work session. This is an opportunity for anybody to have any extended discussion on items that are on the agenda tonight. You can even discuss it a little bit now if you'd like to use some time.
In appreciation for the feedback that was presented during the public hearing, some continued discussion will probably come up as the law is being considered. I appreciate the comments, and both speakers I've worked with very closely. We've spent an incredible amount of time both with the assistance of the Snow Removal Advisory Committee that convened in 2014 and in subsequent meetings of that committee, trying to put together something that would ensure that we have safe sidewalks, that people can walk after a snowstorm. Now, I want you to think of those kids who go to school and have to go into the street when a sidewalk is not properly cleaned. I want you to think of the elderly or the disabled who can't get across a sidewalk because they can't manage the depth. And those were all the considerations that both Ms. Allen and Mr. Moore, among the other committee members, were thinking about as the first and foremost thing that needed to be protected when we considered something outside the box, the city removing the snow for its residents. We decided, we were convinced after we proposed the idea to the Common Council that the city couldn't afford a solution at the time, and as we've gone through this last year of considering, really facing even more clearly the realities of our budget crisis, that is a goal. If we do decide to entertain it later, it will certainly need to be deferred. So with that in mind, there have been months and months of work that has gone into considering how to both make sure our sidewalks are clear and to provide some means of appeal if there are, and you'll notice in the laws a reference to, I believe it's 233.37, if you get a citation and you're aged, infirm, disabled, or otherwise cannot complete the task of removing snow, that you have a means of appealing that fine. If the sidewalk is cleared and you're charged with the snow removal costs, there are provisions that allow you to seek a waiver. So that's really good work, and I think an important new development that came as a result of a lot of collaboration with Building Inspector's Office, the DPW, and the Police Department. During this time as well, there's been very good ideas that have come forward about how to better implement this law. Systems for figuring out how to monitor and take care of the business of, making sure that things are cleared after a snow event. Will it be perfect? Probably not. But what I am committed to is seeing a steady improvement in our conditions, in our sidewalks after a snow event. And I think we're heading in that direction. I believe that our children, our elderly, our pedestrians deserve an effort be made that will protect them. So this is months worth of work. I know it will not satisfy everyone. I know that it seems punitive, but it's also a deterrent. I have a feeling that those people who incur fines or charges for snow removal will think twice before they do it again. And I think it may take time, but we will see a steady improvement as this law becomes more familiar. One last thing I want to say is what you bring up regarding those people who can't do this on their own. That also is a very, that's confirmation of what we already know, that people do need support sometimes. And my next goal that I'm going to try to take care of is to improve a way of getting a volunteer corps together. And if you would like to help me do that, I would certainly be willing to engage with you.
Rochelle, I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One is in regard to the fees.
Which fees?
The administrative fee, the minimum fee, the removal fees, plus the additional fees per linear foot. I guess my question is, was there any consideration given? I can certainly understand the administrative fee. I guess my question is, was there consideration given to, instead of having a minimum fee plus an additional linear footage fee, to just an administrative fee as well as a linear footage, just in a linear footage fee?
All right, I gotcha. Now, I just want to remind you that this is actually a set of fees that we approved not too long ago, and they appear here just for the purpose of review, because they're part of the new law
For purposes of
structure.
restating them, because we're readopting the local law, it made sense to readopt the resolutions that have already been approved. So there was a 2015 resolution establishing the fines,
Right,
which
yeah.
it's
That was-
restating, and then a
that was prior to my
2017 resolution
being on the
establishing the
board.
removal fees, so it was a pass
Right,
a
and
month,
we-
2 months ago.
We consulted with DPW, and this was the fee formula that's been in place for ever. And what we did was update them, bring them up to
Well,
date.
and what's more is the linear foot charge is after 75
5
feet
feet, so
or
anyone
more.
less than 75
So you're
feet.
not talking about a normal household here. You're talking about a bigger property.
And because these are resolutions, there's a lot more flexibility. It's an easier process to adopt a resolution
Yeah,
as
that's
opposed to
why
a
we-
local law.
We adopted them separately because those kinds of fees will naturally need to be adjusted over time. And rather than having them be as part of the law, that's a kind of way to facilitate, expedite that process.
Thank you.
Any other comments before we move to regular session? Seeing none, let's call this meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Armstrong?
Here.
Counselor Kelly? Counselor Dowdle?
Here.
Counselor Ensel?
Here.
Counselor Casper?
Here.
Counselor Kretzer?
I'd like to begin just with a brief update on the Underwood flood, and I have a great pleasure of issuing a proclamation tonight as well. I know many of the councilors have actually, maybe all the councils have been down to the flood site at one time or another. I've been down there just about daily. We did an extensive tour with Assemblyman Jones recently. Senator Little will be touring with me on the weekend. Congressman Stefanik is very aware of this, as is the governor's office. I don't think I can even possibly overstate the displacement of individuals down there. At this point, Joe McMahon and I were going over some figures of 51 families remain displaced. 19 of the 70 families have been able to get back into their units, if that's up to date, Joe?
24 units,
24? Okay. So this has displaced many of our residents. If you assume that an average family size is around 4 people, we have 2,000 or 200 people displaced potentially of this. It's more than 1% of our population that are homeless at this point. In discussions with members of the governor's office who's trying to facilitate some solutions to this, I think we concluded that this is the single biggest displacement of households since the floods of 2011, Hurricane Irene. This is really big, state level proportions. It's incredibly unfortunate that this also happened to the least fortunate among us. Their housing values aren't large. So when we tally 51 families times the value of their homes, is just doesn't meet those same thresholds that would occur if there were 51 households on Lake Champlain instead of Saranac River, for instance. So it's tragically difficult to get the long-term and medium-term assistance these individuals need. The community's rallied around well, and I very much appreciate all the work of all the city employees to, first of all, keep people safe. That was the highest priority for the first few days of this. And the work I reported last week with the Department of Public Works actually sending out or contracting with an excavator to break up the ice for about 300 feet, adjoining that mobile home estates that really allowed the flood water to abate. But then the other networks, from the United Way to the Red Cross to Clinton County Department of Social Services, there are actually about a dozen agencies that came together. Many of them assembled just a few days ago at the emergency shelter and took care of an awful lot of individual short-term needs. So many people are with relatives now or have been temporarily housed in motel rooms. Some people tried to make it back to places that managed to stay dry, of which I think about 19 didn't manage to stay dry there. Many people are trying to get back into places that have literally been underwater because that's, first of all they can afford, and second of all, that is all their property in their lives. They just don't want to walk away and abandon it. So it's just absolutely tragic. Now we're moving into the recovery stage where we're looking for medium and long-term housing. I estimate that probably about 30 houses will never be occupied again. And that's a lot of housing stock we're going to have to find for these individuals. We have found permanent housing for, I think last time I looked, 8 or 9 families. We are working with state agencies to get some medium-term bridge housing for individuals for perhaps the next few months to kind of get them on their feet, but it's very difficult, as you can imagine, to get a lease for a house or an apartment for just 3 months. So we need to obviously look for longer-term solutions. I believe we'll be able to find some. It's been incredibly hard, but I believe we'll be able to find some long-term solutions for these individuals. But it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be overnight. I think we're going to be talking about this for many, many years to come in one dimension or another. We're also devoting a lot of attention to making sure this never happens again. We have had conversations with the property owner. Many of you have been following the reports that this individual is out of state, has only owned the property for just a very short while, just a couple of months. He has been, from what I understand, responsible. I've spoken with him personally once, and other people have spoken to him as well. He is trying to look for an engineering solution to replace the berm down there that would help reduce the risk of flooding in the future. They're having that engineered. We'll have to go through DEC and Army Corps of Engineers and all these sorts of things. So that solution won't happen immediately either, but we really hope it'll happen quickly for fear of any other additional floods this winter. So a lot of energy and effort is being devoted both from city employees and individuals at the county and at the state. I met with an individual who represents the federal Small Business Administration. They toured the location. They may be able to do it, some sort of disaster declaration to at least make people eligible for low interest loans. But again, we suspect that won't be able to help all that many of these individuals, unfortunately, because many of them don't even own their mobile home that they're staying in, they're renting as well. So I know we're going to be working with this for a long, long time, and I know there's still agencies we have to approach. We do want to figure out a way to get FEMA involved, and that will require a state declaration as on top of my declaration for the city. We're doing all these things, but we can't do them really fast enough. People have been displaced, they've lost everything in life, and there's an awful lot of these individuals that are so afflicted. So thank you all for all the help you've given in this really a time of need for a huge number of our citizens and residents. And we'll continue to do the best we can, but our thoughts are with everybody. Do you have any questions on this? There's so many things happening with this and so many different dimensions on it that I'm probably left out 100 different things, but I'd be happy to bring you up to speed in any questions you might have.
Mr. Mayor, I heard from John Bernardi yesterday, from the Executive Director of the United Way, said that there really is a need for gift cards and things, rather than having people just come and donate what they may have, and certainly they wouldn't be turned down, but there really is a need for gift cards, gas cards, things like that for the
That's
residents.
correct. And United Way has made a mechanism for people to devote or to donate to that to allow those gift cards to be distributed. Now remember, and those of you who've toured, I know Councilor Winslow, you've toured some of these homes with me. They've lost everything. You know, they got out maybe on the back of a policeman or a fireman through a front end loader in 5 feet of water just with the clothes on their backs, and then the police and firemen had to go in to get the pets out afterwards. These individuals lost absolutely everything. So just we can't even underestimate just how difficult it is in winter just to get people's clothing back for them. Those gift cards that they do very, very much appreciate. And the United Way has been incredibly helpful throughout this whole exercise, as had the Red Cross. I should note too, the Red Cross hasn't had somebody staying in their shelter for the last couple of nights, so they are discontinuing the shelter. I don't think this is going to be the end of needs, short-term housing needs. I think some individuals will surely be in a location where they can only stay for a few days or a couple of weeks, and they're going to need something very soon. I am going to continue the conversation. The SUNY Plattsburgh offered to use some of their vacant dorm building to potentially house people. So we are going to have to keep looking for short-term housing. Just because there's nobody at the shelter right now doesn't mean that that need all of a sudden has disappeared. We're talking, like I said, about upwards of 50 families have been displaced.
In the discussion you've had with the, as an example, the dormitory, the city actually has no place within the city, correct?
Well, actually,
I mean, during the ice storm, we were able to utilize the schools, but there was no school. So I'm just wondering, you know, there was the idea of the Crate Center, which wasn't feasible, the idea of the gym. Do we have something in place within the city, or do we rely solely on the county emergency services? Because there was a time we had our own city emergency services.
If I had my druthers, I would have housed people perhaps at the city gym. We've got showers and facilities there. It was offered, as was the Crate Center. That part wasn't our call. The Red Cross is responsible for sheltering, and they chose the shelter they used the last time they had to do this, which was at that time the former Moose Lodge across from Wyrie on Route 9, which is actually just out of the city. But we did offer 2 locations within the city to house our residents. And I think certainly the gym would have worked out very well, and our staff were more than willing to try to accommodate people.
And I think what Councilor Ansel mentioned about the gas cards, many of the people worked in town, or their children went to school in town, and now they're faced with the expense of transporting either themselves to work or their children to school.
Correct.
There were several school children displaced that now need to be 18 grade school, there's high school, middle school. Yes, so that's part of the need.
Yeah, there are families staying with families outside.
That's right.
The area,
and these families, you know, they're not 2-car families, and Joe knows how many people lost their cars to this. Their cars were under 4 or 5 feet of water in some cases. So just to imagine the logistics of trying to get your kids to and from school when you're in some far-flung location is incredibly disruptive.
And I'll ask just one more question. Some of the units were owned by one individual but rented.
Correct.
Is that correct? Are some of those units uninhabitable?
Yes.
Are there efforts being made by the actual owner? Because the occupants were not the owners, so it's actually on the owner to get them back together.
I think there's going to be some legal claims. I know that I put the residents in touch with a few lawyers that were willing to do pro bono work on their behalf. I don't know how the meeting went, but they met earlier today. If we think that government relief for medium to long-term needs is slow, certainly the legal system is going to be incredibly slow. But I think that a lot of these individuals should have some sort of recourse. I think they paid their rent and expected to be living in a safe place. But that will be up to them and their lawyers to decide. But they have been in touch with legal help as well.
And for FEMA assistance, the city goes to the county goes to the state goes to the feds.
We're directly going to the state with the help of and the endorsement of the county. The governor's office has to declare a state declaration of emergency before FEMA can respond. That's why I mentioned we've already done our city state of emergency. They have to also do a state version of that.
Right, because there's public aid and individual aid.
And individual aid. We're hopeful. We know we're not going to meet the threshold for public aid.
Right.
But because these are relatively low value, low cost. This location was relatively low cost, but individual aid, I understand, is based on numbers of people, households afflicted, rather than the cost of their household. So we're hopeful that with that declaration, we can meet that threshold, even if we can't meet the public assistance threshold.
Mr. Mayor, I know you said earlier that in conversations or others' conversation with the current owner, he's looking into possibly remedy the situation with the berm. And so Am I to take it that the plan is to replace the units or replace what was lost?
I think that we don't know yet. I believe that if the state can find a mechanism to get more involved in compensation, it'll probably also have the caveat, very much like what Riverside Cemetery or the Riverside Lake Mobile Home Park that was abandoned a number of years ago. The provision often is that if you take this money, you also have to ensure it won't revert back to mobile home pad again. Now, those of you who've toured with me know that some of the mobile home actually is much higher than other parts. Some parts were 5 feet underwater. Other parts remained completely accessible. As a matter of fact, 6 households remained or occupied right away as soon as the emergency order was removed that allowed that was there to have the police secure the area. So it might be a situation where the state may come in and ask for some sort of buyout for part of the mobile home park that's on the low-lying area, and still the other part may be viable. It'd be premature for me to guess which would happen, but those are the kinds of conversations that are being discussed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, from something very sad and difficult to something gives me a great pleasure. We have a proclamation tonight. Let me read this. Whereas February 1 through 28, 2018 has been designated Career and Technical Education Month by the Association for Career and Technical Education. And whereas Career and Technical Education offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness. And whereas students in career and technical education programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase their engagement and achievement. And whereas career and technical education provides students with career exploration opportunities earlier in their educational experience, which enables them to make informed and beneficial decisions about their academic coursework and pursue established programs of study and career pathways. And whereas leaders from business and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to addressing the skills gap and connecting qualified professionals with available careers in critical and growing CTE-related fields, including healthcare, energy, advanced manufacturing, transportation, and information technology. And whereas career and technical education prepares students for these and other fulfilling careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education and lead to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials. And whereas ensuring that employers have access to a qualified workforce as a crucial step in ensuring productivity among the business and industry communities, as well as continued American economic growth and global competitiveness. And whereas the Smith-Hughes Act, the first act of Congress to provide funding for career and technical education, was signed into law 101 years ago, and allows us to celebrate how far CTE has come to become a powerhouse in America's economy. Now, therefore, I, Colin Reed, Mayor of the City of Plattsburgh, New York, do proclaim February 1st to 28th, 2018 as Career and Technical Education Month. And in the City of Plattsburgh, I urge all citizens to become familiar with the services and benefits offered by the career and technical education programs in this community, and to support and participate in those programs to enhance their individual skills and productivity. So we've got a couple of representatives, a number of representatives actually from CV Tech, so please come forward and receive this proclamation. Here's your proclamation.
Mayor, Joel's going to take a photo.
There you go.
All together. Perfect. All right. 3, 2, 1. Let's take one more. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Shall we continue?
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on January 18, 2018 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Ensel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending January 24th, 2018 in the amount of $130,622.96 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Dottle and second by Councilor Armstrong. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the reports as listed are hereby ordered, received, and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Ensel and second by Councilor Casper. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the bills ordered by the Common Council for the week ending January 26, 2018 in the amount of $2,153,273.15 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Dowdle and seconded by Councilor Ensel. Well, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. This is an opportunity for any individuals from the public to please come and address the council on any issues on the agenda tonight. There will be another general comment period at the end of the meeting. Seeing none, please continue.
Adoption of local law P-1 of 2018. Resolved that local law amending Chapter 233, Streets and Sidewalks, Article 5, Removal of Snow and Ice on Public Sidewalks, Sections 233.30 through 233.37 of the City Code of the City of Plattsburgh. The local law shall take effect immediately upon approval by the mayor and filing with the New York Secretary of State. The entire text of which has been distributed to and read by the members of the Common Council is hereby enacted without the reading thereof, and a copy of said local law is made part of the minutes of this meeting.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Casper. Discussion. Ready to vote? Roll call.
Councilor Armstrong?
Yes.
Councilor Dowdle?
Yes.
Councilor Ensel?
Yes.
Councilor Casper?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves accepting funds for EPF grant for City of Plattsburgh Saranac Street Bridge project. Resolved that Colin Reed, as mayor of the
I'd
City
like
of
to move to
Plattsburgh.
table this resolution.
We have one move to table, second by Councilor Armstrong. Discussion? All in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Opposed? Tabled.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council restates November 12, 2015 fine structure, Article 5, removal of snow and ice on public sidewalks, Sections 233.37, the entire text of which is made part of the minutes of this meeting.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Dowdle. Discussion?
Just a quick matter of housekeeping. As we know, we're restating these resolutions because we've just adopted this new local law. These resolutions actually have a reference to a code section that was one level below or above it. So Beth just read the proper sections. It's 37 as opposed to 36 because 36 is shown in the original resolution. So as part of this restatement, I would just suggest an amendment that this resolution conforms to the new numbering that is set forth in the new adopted local law. And the same point will apply to item D.
What he said.
You accept that amendment?
I accept that amendment.
Okay.
It's just a clerical consideration.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Armstrong?
Yes.
Councilor Dowdle?
Yes.
Councilor Ensel?
Yes.
Councilor Casper?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council restates December 14, 2017 resolution schedule of snow removal costs.
I'd like to move the, how do you do that?
Waive the reading and move the
Waive the
resolution.
Yeah, that's what I want.
And with that same amendment.
With the same amendment.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Casper. Discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Armstrong?
Yes.
Councilor Dowdle?
Yes.
Councilor Ensel?
Yes.
Councilor Casper?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves Building Inspector Joseph McMahon, Housing Inspector Kenneth Premart, Housing Inspector Kyle Burrow, and Municipal Code Inspector James Welch to attend the 23rd Annual Northern Adirondack Continuing Education Conference, promoting the code official's role as a first preventer in Lake Placid, New York, from March 5th through 8th, 2018, at a cost not to exceed $1,140. This codes education conference provides mandatory training hours to retain code enforcement certification.
Moved by Councilor Dowell, second by Councilor Ansel. Discussion? I should note this, and the next three resolutions actually were recommended from the respective committee. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves one police department employee to attend property evidence room management training course in Utica, New York from February 21st through 22nd, 2018. The total cost should not exceed $386. There is no fee for training and will be expensed out of the budgeted training fund.
Moved by Councilor Dowell, second by Councilor Ansel. Discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves 2 fire department employees to attend hazardous materials technology sampling, monitoring, and detection in Anniston, Alabama from February 21st through March 4th, 2018. The total cost should not exceed $400. All other costs are paid for by New York State Homeland Security and Emergency Services.
Moved by Councilor Casper and second by Councilor Armstrong. Discussion?
I'd just like to note that coming out of the meeting, I think one thing that we should look at when we do these approvals, besides what the actual travel costs involved is, potential overtime costs incurred by the department and so on for attending these conferences.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves one police department employee to attend Employee Assistance Program Supervisor Training and New Coordinator Institute mandatory training in Utica, New York from March 12th through 16th, 2018. The total cost should not exceed $805. Training will be expensed out of the budgeted training fund.
Moved by Councilor Casper and second by Councilor Armstrong. Discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Are there any resolutions for initial consideration? Councilor Department Chair reports. Governance. Will you be able to speak to that, Councilor Armstrong, as code, or as a second
Well,
member?
I think believe we're scheduled for February 1st. So.
Thank you. City Infrastructure, Councilor Casper.
Not at this time.
Finance and Budget, Councilor Ensel, would you be able to speak on behalf of Councilor Kelly?
We met last week and no further report.
Public Safety, Councilor Dowdle.
Just that tonight, actually, the ink isn't dry yet from our first meeting. Thought it went well. We learned a lot.
Thank you. Plattsburgh Public Library, Councilor Armstrong.
There was no meeting this week. It was canceled, so I will be meeting with the library director, and I'll have a report for you next week.
Thank you. And MLD, MLD Board President Ensel.
We will be meeting February 15th, following our regular council meeting.
Thank you. Any other new business or additional councilor discussion? Seeing none, this is an opportunity for the public to please come forward and address the council on any issue of mutual concern. Would you like to say a few more words about the value of technical education?
I would like to.
Please. Please.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for giving us the time to be here tonight. Many of you have been members of this community for many, many years and are most likely familiar with the services that Champlain Valley Educational Services provides to both Clinton and Essex counties, particularly the division of CV Tech, which addresses career and technical education in the North Country. One of the most important things that we could do for our children is to provide quality, authentic education. We are very proud of the career and technical education opportunities that we have in Clinton and Essex County, particularly in Plattsburgh, on our 2 campuses providing career and technical education. Career and technical education is not our grandparents' vocational education anymore. There is quite an intricate synergy between the trades, the competencies within those trades, technical competencies, academic competencies, and a seamless pathway into post-secondary training for lifelong learning. So just because you learned a trade doesn't mean it needs to be your life's work, but it will be a skill that you have for life and potentially could become something much more than what we initially thought of. If you haven't been to CV Tech or John W. Harold Educational Center, as it may have been known to some of us in the room, in the last 10 years, please take an opportunity to come. We are so proud to be part of the movement of career and technical education, not just in the North Country, but across the country, where we are recognizing skilled, quality workforce. Now, what we want to do at CV Tech is make sure we train and sustain, because our kids deserve to stay here in the beautiful North Country, but also have the option of having a very good livelihood. One of the things that I will share with you that we are very proud of is we are the only public high school in the state of New York that has every single career and technical education program nationally accredited at a post-secondary level, which not only provides access to our secondary students in our 17 component districts in Clinton and Essex County, but it allows our post-secondary learners to co-enroll into our programs, into our 2-year programs, and have access to Title IV financial aid funding. So students, whether they're high school or they're looking to recalibrate their career, could actually file a FAFSA and have some assistance coming to CV Tech. So it is not only just the high school students who have access. We have the ability for our adult learners to come in during our daytime programs, and we also offer very specific training for our business and industry partners, most specifically Bombardier, Norse Technology, and other very well-known companies throughout the North Country. So for the council to recognize February as National CTE Month and recognize it here in the city shows your commitment and dedication, not just to CTE, but to our community and for their well-being and their opportunities to grow and sustain a wonderful North Country economy. So thank you from all of us at CV Tech. Our district superintendent, Mark Davey, is here in attendance, and he allowed me the podium, so thank you very much, Dr. Davey, and one of our principals, Mr. Jim McCartney, at our satellite campus. The invitation is open to everybody. If you haven't been there, please call for a tour so we can take you through and see what's available. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to extemporaneously speak about it. And Liz knows I can go on forever.
I'm
So
just going to say,
Sure.
things have changed. When I was very young, my father took monthly his 1957 Ford truck to Bosie's to have them work on it. So they cut their teeth on a...
Well, all right. So bring us yours and we'll work on yours too.
Which you can get a great detailing for $10.
Absolutely. You can detail. We have our own sugar
That's
house
right.
on site. We have our own FAA certified Part 147 airframe and power plant aviation tech facility. So you name it, from carpentry to aircraft maintenance to conservation, healthcare, and all points in between. So please, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and please come visit and see for yourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other individuals like to come in, please share some comments with the council? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn tonight? Moved by Councilor Casper, second by Councilor Armstrong. Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming tonight. I can. I'm kind of in and out a lot. but certainly.
You enjoyed yourself.